What's up, folks? Welcome back to another edition of the Winning Drive. But this winning drive feels a little bit different because the Longhorns are reporting to training camp. We got practices starting up this week. Coordinator availability is coming up this week. There'll be multiple media windows. So CJ and the crew, myself, gonna get out there and get a chance to see some practice. Get back to you guys our reactions about what we're seeing. So officially, guys, we got football starting up. That's why the winning drive feels a little bit different. Glad you guys could join us. We'll answer as many of your questions as we can. Just throw them out there. Even recruiting questions. My man CJ, that's what he's here for. He's our recruiting phenom. We can get into that as well. But let me introduce the rest of the crew first before we start. My man CJ, the young phenom, lifetime Longhorn like myself. And of course, we have the coach, former high school football coach at Bernie, Capel, Brownwood, Rotan. Also played college football at Abilene Christian, coached there multiple stints. Also on the staff at the University of Texas for multiple head coaches. Now you can find his work right there. Boom. ShipleyRanches.com. It's Coach Bob Shipley. What's going on, Coach? How you doing?
Hey, what's up? All good, man. Training camp starting, babe.
Ooh, yeah, Coach. Around this time of year, you start feeling. You still get them butterflies? You still get it around this time of year?
Man, that smell of fresh cut grass. Oh man, gotta love it.
Yeah, no doubt. CJ, how you doing, brother? How you doing? I know you've been busy. You're on the go all the time. I know you're excited about training camp starting up. How's everything going with you?
Good. I'm excited for some ball to be played again, right? We're excited to hear what this team is looking like. We've talked about it for, 8 months basically. So it's here. It's exciting. This week we'll have a lot of updates. I'll be on the phone talking to whoever, trying to get some details, share them with On Texas Football fans here and on TexasFootball.com. So make sure you come join us, join the community, and we got you guys covered this week and beyond.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We'll get to a lot of different topics, of course, and we're going to talk about training camp, some of the storylines, the coordinators. Coordinators aren't often available to the media. I think it happens maybe once at the beginning of the year, once at the end of the year. So I think that's going to be interesting to talk about what PK, Jeff Banks, Kyle Flood have to say. Thank you guys for joining us for wherever you are. We appreciate you guys joining us. We're also going to get to CJ's article he had on Texas Football. This is why you got to be an OTF OG. You got to join the On Texas Football family. Great breakdown about the red zone for Texas. I'll let CJ reveal it. Won't give away too much. You should go check it out for yourself. But he went down the rabbit hole, and when CJ goes down the rabbit hole, it's worth us bringing it up because it's always some good details and nuggets we're gonna get from that. So we'll get educated a little bit from CJ's breakdown. We're also gonna get into some win totals, some latest college football win totals that are out. We'll dive into some NFL training camp headlines. There's some Longhorns who are already standing out. Training camp just starting up for all the teams in the NFL, and already some Longhorns who are standing out, turning some heads. So we'll talk about that too coming up in the show. But of course, all of your questions and comments, that is top of mind for us, and we'll answer as many of them as we can. All right, let me just ask you guys this, since we'll have the coordinators available. And if I'm not mistaken, CJ, I believe that's tomorrow. That the coordinators are going to be available, correct? And it doesn't have. Is it just once at the beginning of the year, and then once like before the bowl game or somewhere around there? That's usually
basically the only time, Rod. You only get to talk to the coordinators right before the season. So PK, Coach Flood, Coach Banks, they're going to be out there talking in front of the media. You don't get to hear about it too often from them. So this will be interesting.
Okay, so and with that said, Coach, and I think, Coach, that is. I mean, that's a Sark thing, right? Because I think that was a Saban thing.
Right.
Mac was different. Mac, you talked to the coordinators. And how did Tom Herman do it? I don't remember. How did Tom Herman?
Yeah, he did coordinators.
Yeah.
Coordinators too.
Yeah. See, so yeah, that's a Sark thing. I think it's to take pressure, right? Take pressure off your coaches. Let them coach. Is that what it's all about, Coach? Just let them do their thing?
Well, not only that, but a lot of times at home games, you've got recruits that these guys need to get with.
Gotcha.
So I think it's probably a pretty good idea because you don't want to just let them go. You want them to leave on a high note. So you want your coordinators getting with those guys before they get out of town. So I think it's just another advantage. I'm not saying that's why he does it, but that's one advantage of doing it that way.
No, it's a good point. I didn't even think about that, Coach. There you go. That's why Coach is here. All right, so let's start on the offensive side of things. Let's start with Kyle Flood. Which obviously you got Sark, he'll be available every week. But is there a question, gentlemen, that you would have for Kyle Flood specifically at the media availability on Tuesday, since you don't get a chance to talk to him, but twice a year?
Yeah, I think there's one, and I know wide receiver is the hot topic, right? Everybody wants to know what that rotation looks like, but to me, what's going to be that next step for the offensive line, right? They had a good year a year ago. I think specifically, and we'll talk about it when we get to the red zone, but there were times where, some of the go-to play calls that Sarkisian likes to, kind of call on over and over and over again in the red area, they just don't match what Texas succeeds with, right? I talked about duo and some of the zone, split zone, gap running schemes that they go to. What's going to be the next step? Has there been improvement? Do you feel confident in that group right now? They return a lot of pieces, obviously, but at the same time, do you see that progression and that development from a year ago? How confident are you in that group taking the next step to be in that conversation for the Joe Moore at the end of the year? It's going to be very important to me. So right now, that's kind of the second question I would have, because, again, I think that wide receiver rotation is probably going to be the hottest topic of conversation for Sark and Flood tomorrow as well.
Like that. What about you, Coach? You had a question for Coach Flood? I know you probably can talk some old line, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think one thing I'd like to know is, and I don't know how straight of an answer you'd get out of any question, really, but one of the things that you harp on a lot, what advantages does he think the pony package or two-back set gives him? But specifically, how do you change the mindset of the offense with its lack of success in the red zone? Or is it something that you don't put in their head? Is it something that you as a staff take care of? Or is there something that you're working on psychologically to get the guys tougher, that when we get in or close to the red zone, you'd like to think they're already playing at the highest level they could, but is there anything that you would say or do, or a mindset you're trying to put into these guys to really ramp up our success rate in the red zone, because it's been pitiful?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, and there's no question that's been a focus for him. I probably would go two ways. I'd go, are we going to see an increase in the Big 11, Big 12 package? I've heard Kyle Flood go on the record at one of his coaching clinics and saying that he'd like it to be around 30% of their offensive personnel, somewhere around there. So he's an offensive line coach, so of course he wants more O-linemen out there. But that's when they have 6 O-linemen out there, the Big 11, Big 12 package. Do we see an increase in that? Because last year they threw the ball a lot better at that, a lot of straight drop back situations, added a layer of pass protection. And I also ask, just kind of overall, if Kyle Flood thought that third down is also should be a point of emphasis. We don't talk about it enough, but Texas hasn't really been a great third down team. Now, third down hasn't taken the precipitous decline that red zone production has taken, where you went from top 5 in the country, basically, and now you're 120th in the country in touchdown percentage in red zone. It didn't take that kind of dip. That's why the red zone is so concerning, is because as your team has gotten better, you've gotten worse in that category. So you got to figure out that mystery. But third down, you've been 70th and 73rd the last couple of years. So you're just a little below average in third down offense. That is intriguing, though. That's how much room for improvement, guys, there is on this offense. Think about that. In two crucial areas, guys, they've been below average in 2 crucial areas the last 2 years, and yet still have been one of the better teams in the country. Offenses, I should say, too.
That is interesting, right? Because you think about the aggressiveness, and I think at times it pays off for Sarkisian, and at times it doesn't, right? That's part of rolling the dice. But, early on in games when you see Sarkisian line up for 4th downs and convert, I think that at points kind of alleviates what has been a bit of an issue, right, of being a middle of the pack or even below average third down team at times. So I think you don't hear about it as often, especially at the end of the day when you see, 35, 36 points being put on a board per game. You sit there and say, yeah, I mean, the offense did its job. But at the same time, with all the talent and the schemes that Sarkisian has, the ceiling is much higher if those early down success rates continue to improve. So that's a great point. I mean, it certainly is lower on the list of I would say, questions or maybe even concerns with the
Concerns, yeah.
offense, right? Obviously, red zone is number one. What else comes after that? Well, I don't know if there's been many thoughts about what else is a concern because of how much the red zone has been talked about this offseason. So third down's a good point to bring up and see what's coming or what's set to be improved in 2024.
Well, I can tell you the answer. The answer will be a canned answer. And it will simply be, we have to avoid third and long situations.
Mm-hmm.
That's what every coach will tell you. We've got to make our third downs manageable yardage.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's like it's almost like the old Bill Walsh quote, right? The best third down call is the one you don't have to make. So you're always trying to avoid it altogether, right? And get it on first. And I would say that might be a big part of it too. Sark's offense is explosive. He does get, a lot of chunk yardage first downs. We know that first and second down, especially when you get the early down pass rate increased. And CJ, you're right. If I go look at the fourth down offense for Texas, they've been at least in 2022, they were like 53rd, I believe it is here, in fourth down offense in terms of converting, and they were around, and I think in 2023, sorry, I'm doing this on the fly, I apologize. In 2023, you have Texas at 61% and they're 33rd. So they're 33rd in fourth down conversion rate last season, and then they were right around 50th, somewhere around there in 2022 in fourth down conversion rate. So they were 49, so 50 or whatever tied. So to your point, maybe Sark does not emphasize third down because in his mind, once you pass a certain point on the field, he's going for it anyway. And he's basically, in his mind, he's a 4-down play caller mode where it's like, all right, you know what? Third down gets me in a manageable fourth and short.
I believe it. I mean, that's what it's been, right? Again, you go back to early on in drives too, right? We saw it against Alabama a few times, going for it on fourth down. But going through kind of those red zone possessions last night, I saw it, when Sarkisian gets into an area on the field where, one, he trusts his defense to sustain or get a stop for whatever's on the opposite side of where the ball is. He absolutely would turn it around and say, yeah, this is going to be 4-down territory. We might take a shot on third down. We might set it up for a fourth down look, but I know that I've got two downs to get 4 or 5 yards. And at the end of the day, I think that's fun, right? You like the aggressiveness because when it does pay off, all of a sudden 7 points looks much better on the board than 3. And at the end of the day, if you can get your offense feeling that momentum, then you won't probably be in a position later on in the game to be in a third and long or a fourth down situation, right? Because you'll have that momentum, you'll have that confidence. And, once you talk about that rhythm as a play caller as well, what works. You can go back to the well later on as well.
Which Sark doesn't do enough. I always say that. Sark doesn't like leftovers because he don't play the hits. All right? Yeah. If it works, I'd run it till they stop it, Coach. Old school. All right, let's get to one last. I want to get to other coordinators as well, what questions you may have for them. Then we'll get to some of the questions. So let's flip to the defensive side of things for PK. What question would you have for PK? Coach, I'll start with you. You got anything for Coach PK defensively?
Well, I would like one question. I don't think that it'd probably be fair to answer, and he probably wouldn't be smart to answer it, honestly, but bringing in the new defensive line coach, Nate
Nansen.
Yeah. How much?
Hold on. You want Baker or the D line coach, or are you talking about Nansen, the linebacker coach?
No, I'm talking about linebacker coach. Nansen.
Okay, Nansen.
Yeah. We all want to know: are we going to become more multiple or more just aggressive? Defensively with some of that. But I probably not a fair question to ask him, and I don't know if you'd get an honest answer. But I would say the same thing that I asked about the red zone. What steps have we taken? What is the mentality going into this season for our defensive secondary to get off the feet, to get us off the field, and not give up the big play? The quick breaking inside routes, the fade routes. What it's kind of a loaded question because, how do you answer that?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. We're trying to get people in the right position. We're trying, they're going to give you canned answers, but I mean, you got to have a plan, and whether they'd share that with us as to what their mindset is going into this season to change the effectiveness of, our secondary play at times.
Yeah, I think Sarkis said basically it's just more edge pressure, right? Better edge pressure and essentially tighter coverage. And I think adding Makuba, he's talked about that. A young Malik Muhammad now as your day one starter, Derek Williams, day one starter, and those are all guys who are more coverage specialists. So I believe that's what he go back to. But I think the real answer is more exotic looks from Johnny Nansen. He's going to bring to the table his experienced guys in the Pac-12. Just think about that murderous row of quarterbacks that he had to face in the Pac-12. And go watch that Arizona defense, CJ. I know you've watched it, and you watched it too, Coach. That Arizona defense held its own with some of the best quarterbacks coming out in the draft in a while, coming out of the Pac-12. And a lot of that was the exotic looks, the weekly change-up, kind of the matchup-based looks from Johnny Nansen. So I'm kind of with you, Coach. That would be my question. I don't know how much he would reveal, probably not much, but it would be about the influence of Johnny Nansen. I think that and edge pressure is what they're going to rely on, that kind of schematically, strategically, to improve the overall pass defense. But they'll play tighter coverage because they have better coverage defenders.
Yeah, they absolutely should, right? The thing with Nansen is so interesting to me because you look at the prospects that you have at linebacker, and it's Anthony Hill, it's David Benda. It's 2+ athletes. We obviously know what Anthony Hill can do with his 5-star pedigree, but David Benda is a really underrated linebacking athlete to me. Go back to that Alabama game last year. What was the biggest play of the game that he made? It was a game in which he was cut. He goes through and he does basically a barrel roll over himself, gets up and sacks Jalen Milroe. That's not an easy thing to do. It showcases, however, his athleticism and his ability to get up and follow the quarterback. That's something I think that's very unique with the Texas linebacking duo right now. I don't think – and Jalen Ford was very talented dropping back. Right, he was a great coverage guy. He could read eyes very well, got in the passing lanes, and he was a timely turnover machine. That was what made his 2022 campaign so special. He wasn't a guy that was ever a plus going upfield, getting after the quarterback. Now, run fitting, I thought he was a very good run fitter. He's not a great blitzer. And I think what you have right now with Anthony Hill and David Benda are two guys that have that ability to become plus quarterback blitzers or to get pressure on the quarterback some way or another. We already saw it with Anthony Hill a year ago, one of Texas's best pass rushers in its entirety, right? David Benda wasn't asked to do it too much because at times he wasn't on the field in an opportunity to get after the quarterback, right? That wasn't necessarily what was asked of him in the situations that he was on the field for. But I look at the duo of these guys thinking, yeah, you could really create some interesting and almost diabolical twists and stunts and schemes for these guys to scrape across off a tackle or come up underneath over the center or guard and find ways to get pressure on the quarterback, which, again, I was calling for it at the Washington game. If you can have pressure up the middle, and Texas did last year with Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat, if you can have speed pressure up the middle, it changes a whole lot because that pocket and what you see as a quarterback changes instantly if that pressure comes quickly. And I think what you see with those two guys can be some sort of solution or a newfound answer, if you will, for that defense. Of course, I brought it up several times, but Jacob Manu is only about a 5'10", 5'11" linebacker for Arizona a year ago. And under Johnny Nansen had 6 sacks. So you don't see that too much, especially at 5'10", a true middle linebacking prospect. Anthony Hill, I believe, only had 4.5, and that's a guy who played off the edge for the first half of the season before moving full-time to the middle. So I do think that there's creative opportunities available this year with Johnny Nansen and how PK and him kind of collaborate with that linebacking position, because all the focus right now is going to be on the edges. Help chip with tight ends, help keep a running back in, chip, help on those edge guys. what's not going to be talked about is those linebackers coming up the middle. So I think, to me, that's going to be the one area that I think you see a lot of success with is linebacking blitzes in 2024.
Oh, I like that prediction, CJ. That's nice. Special teams, Coach Jeff Banks. My first question would be, first of all, congratulations, because he just got married. And where's the honeymoon? Would you be willing to reveal where you took your honeymoon and had a great time, I'm sure, with the beautiful Mrs. Banks? So I throw that out there. Your question, you got a question from CJ. What would your question for Jeff Banks be?
Yeah, who are your gunners going to be, right? We saw how important punting was last year. We saw Ryan Sanborn was a tremendous punter, but beyond that, it was Keaton Crawford and it was Keelan Robinson that were so good at getting down the field as gunners to pin guys deep, not allow returns, and to keep balls down inside the 5 or the 10. I thought that was a really impressive aspect, very underrated aspect of the game for the Longhorns a year ago. I think right now, the way that we saw it in the spring was going to be Gavin Holmes. It's going to be Trey Wisner. Trey Wisner, we absolutely know what he can do on special teams. He's almost a monster in that sense of what he can do and the effort that he puts in on that side of the ball. Are those going to be the guys that you roll with to start the season? If not, who might be those guys? Are they up to speed with what's expected of them and to carry that torch from a year ago at the gunner position? That's what I'll be looking at.
Yeah. Coach, what about you? You got a question for Coach Banks?
Well, my question would be if they do wind up bumping up the scholarship numbers, are they going to use a couple of those for specialist punter, kicker?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so we don't have to, get guys to come walk on. And that eliminates about 90%, of your possible potential kickers and punters because they have to get in UT on their own merit. You think about it, they've got to get on just like any walk-on. They got to get in school on their own. So it's more difficult for a kicker or a punter when you're selecting a guy you're trying to get to walk on. First of all, you got to make sure he can get in school. And so anyway, I would ask him if he thought if they did have the extra scholarships coming up available, would that be in his thought process, or would he go to the table to fight? Stand on the table to fight for a guy they feel really good about not having to walk on.
That's good stuff, Coach. I didn't think about that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Before we get started with the questions, thank you guys for all your questions. We appreciate it. And we'll get some topics we're going to throw out there as well. I want to take this time to thank one of our fantastic sponsors, our good friends at South Point Dodge. They're now part of the Owen Texas football family. And really, we are really grateful for having them a part of the family and sponsoring the winning drive. So Texas football fans, you can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the points at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including a great selection of Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s. Whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is the one-stop shop. And right now, they also have great deals going on their Ram 2500s. Over 50 Ram 2500s right now are marked down with huge savings at South Point Dodge. You can go check that out for yourself over there in South Austin off I-35, or you can go visit them online today at southpointdodge.com. That's southpointdodge.com. So get to the point with our friends at South Point Dodge. Score big today at South Point Dodge. That is your one-stop shop, Austin's automotive everything. South Point Dodge, southpointdodge.com. Go check it out for yourself. Thank you very much for sponsoring the winning drive. All right, let's get to some of the questions. Thank you guys for the questions. We appreciate it. Let's start here with Todd Lacey. This is for you, CJ. Got a couple of them. Do you see Texas flipping a target currently committed to another school? And on top of that, which transfer player currently on the roster do you see having the biggest impact? So 2 of those from Todd. We appreciate the question. I'll start with you, CJ, about the target of flipping a target from another school potentially.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you just saw what Texas was able to do with Josiah Sharma, getting him in the fold from Oregon. A win Texas, needed at the defensive line position, but also a little get back at Oregon for some of the wins that they've had in the state of Texas that Texas was recruiting after as well. I do see Texas going out and adding another flip, right? There's a long way to go before signing day. And even beyond that, Texas still gets to play on the field. They get plenty of opportunities to showcase their program, their team in 2024 and host recruits for games, right? It was rumored that Myron Charles was expected on campus this past week, and obviously he did not make it in, but Texas is still pushing there. So absolutely still believe that Texas is after a number of prospects that are committed elsewhere. That's just how this staff works. That's how they operate. That's one of their big philosophies is until they put pen to pad, they're free game. And so we'll certainly see them continue to push and get guys on campus to potentially flip later on this cycle.
All right. Coach, I'll throw the other one from Todd to you. Which transfer player do you see currently right now having the biggest impact?
Well, that's a good question, but I'm going to go with somebody that I think may have the overall biggest impact, that is in special teams and at receiver, Silas Bolden.
Ooh. Wow. I like that. I did not expect that answer, actually. I like that. Coach,
yeah, I'm not saying he's going to be the number one receiver. And obviously, we've got other transfers that have incredible kick returning ability, but something about that guy I really like, and I think he'll have a huge impact. Whether it's the biggest or not, I don't know.
Yeah, biggest, man, that's a good question. Obviously, if you come in being the leading receiver, I mean, that says a lot. Right now, I might go with Trey Moore.
I was going to go that way too, Rod. I like that pick.
Yeah, he's just, you know what I mean? You haven't had a natural pass rusher like him in a while. And I just heard too many good things from guys who've been out there at practice, who've watched him go up against Texas offensive line in practice, and he's made so many plays. We didn't get a chance to see much of him in the spring game. I think that was intentional. I know he might have been dealing with something, but I don't think they want to showcase Trey Moore. I think he could have a really a big-time year, CJ.
Yeah, I think so. And we saw the comment that was brought up earlier, who has more sacks, Ethan Burke or Trey Moore? I lean towards Moore, right? I just think that, Rod, you bring it up all the time, right? When you play press man, it's an innate coverage, right? You know, it's one of those things that you either have, you understand how to get after the quarterback, or you know how to play, hip to hip with a wide receiver. For Moore, I think he just has that knack, very similarly to what we've seen with Anthony Hill a year ago and also Colin Simmons in high school and kind of what helped him, kind of earn that 5-star status. To me, I think you see that with Moore. And to get him up to about 240, 245 pounds, very important to play in the SEC where you'll see some of the bigger, largest humans at the tackle position this year. I think you have that a little bit more with Trey Moore than you do with Ethan Burke. That's not to say Ethan Burke's a bad edge rusher. That's quite the opposite. However, I just think that there's a higher upside and that kind of instinct is a little bit higher for Trey Moore than Ethan Burke or, some of these guys on the roster at the moment. I do think that edge room is going to be very talented for Texas. It'll be the best, most it'll have the highest production of any edge room that we've seen in quite some time in my eyes, just because of the pure depth of talent. Mm-hmm. But I think that he's going to be the guy that defenses will look or offenses will look at and say, that's the guy we got to hone in on every snap. Know where 31's on the field at all times. We can worry about the other guys later, but know where he's at right now on passing downs.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see how they use him. They have so much depth in that room, in terms of who starts and who finishes. I still feel like Trey Moore would be my closer. And I would keep Burke and Sorrell as my guys that open things up. And I'd want him to finish the games when your opponent is weakest, when you're up in games, when you're in more predictable passing situations. And I'm sure they're going to rotate, but in terms of the bulk of their snaps, that's kind of how I would lay it out. But I can't wait to see how they decide to do it. This one comes from Colin. Colin, thank you. Hookem from Lano, Texas says, ready for Wednesday. What are y'all most interested to hear about with practice? I just think the media window that we're going to get a chance to go to, I'm probably going to go to edges and to wide receivers. Even I'm a DB, so it's blasphemy for me to say that I might skip my DBs to just go look at the wideouts and go look at the edges. I don't know. What about you, CJ? What are you interested in when you to hear about and see in practice?
Yeah, two things, right? It's going to be the first rotation at defensive line. You got a lot of bodies there, a lot of experience, a lot of guys that played, plenty of snaps in their career. Who comes out first and who comes out in those key third and short, third and medium downs? How does Texas kind of rotate those groups of Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, the transfers. That'll be really interesting to me. And then obviously, who's your first group of wide receivers trotted out as well? Does Ryan Wingo crack it? Who knows? But by what we've heard from SEC Media Days, before and after, right? A lot of those conversations have been involving him as a guy that will be involved somehow this fall on the field for the Longhorns. I expect him to be a big time player before SEC, conference play starts up for the Longhorns.
Coach, what about you? What are you most interested to hear about with practice starting?
Well, first of all, Colin was the contestant I played against on the game show night.
Oh no!
When we ran the big cover two. Big cover two. That's right. Those big round cover 2 zone areas back there. Colin, what's going on, buddy? Thanks for the question. I think the receiver rotation is probably the first on most people's list, and who's going to be on the defensive front. But I'm really interested to see what they're going to do at that corner spot.
Good point,
Rod. See who's going to run out there with that first group with at corner.
That's good, Coach. You're right. I think it's going to be Gavin Holmes, but between him and Javion Cole, they're going to be fighting it out this training camp. That's one of the only spots. That's a good point. There are a couple of spots that are still right now. There's heavy competition. We actually don't know how at least who's going to start or who's considered the front line starter to play at that position. And corner is probably the main position. That's the one Nick Saban wrote up. Nick Saban said that one personnel issue that concerns him for Texas was cornerback spot opposite Malik Muhammad. So, Coach, you thinking like a coach. That's probably what we should be paying a lot of attention to. That's what Nick Saban says. That's where the weakness is on the roster. All right, Colin, good. Thank you for that. And, for Coach,
That was my sign for cover 2.
Hey, that should be. And cover 2 press.
Yeah, actually, it wasn't cover 2, but if I coached defense and I was still coaching, I don't know how I could not have cover 2.
Oh, how did Coach miss it? His mind was somewhere else. That's all. All right, getting back to the questions here. Just a dude. Thank you for the question, Just a Dude. Will Sark use the big bodies like tight ends in the end zone more? Yeah, and my man CB kind of brings this up too. Thank you, Just a Dude. And CB's got a similar question. Who is in the jumbo goal line package now that Sweat and Murphy are gone? So I think they're talking about something similar here, right? About the big bodies package, that jumbo package that Sark had in the end zone and the red zone goal line area. Yeah, he threw it to those guys a couple of times too. Took everybody by surprise. CJ, this might be a great opportunity for us to get into that CJ, and let's give us some tidbits. Don't give away everything, because CJ went down a rabbit hole, Coach, and basically watched every snap that Texas had in the red zone and took notes, found trends. You got to go check it out. This is why you want to be an OTF OG. All right, go to On Texas Football, on TexasFootball.com. What can you tell us in regards to what you saw from the jumbo packages that Texas had in the red zone that you saw?
Yeah, well, let me tell you, I was up pretty late doing this. I was on the Matthew Hutchinson grind timeline last night. Our great producer is up late all the time, but was down a rabbit hole last night. Watched every single snap of Quinn Ewers or the QB1 for that game, so Malik Murphy as well, from the 2023 schedule, season. Yeah, charted them all, Coach. So down, distance, hash, player, personnel, where did it go? What was the result?
Nice,
man. One thing I can tell you is I have some questions with Sarkisian's usage of the tight ends in general in the red zone.
Okay.
It was not that great in terms of what we saw out of production from Jatavian Sanders last year. He only had 6.5% of the targets or volume share of the red zone snaps last year, but 10 snaps, they were directed to Jatavian Sanders. Here's how they went. They had 2 completions out of 10 targets.
Wow.
For 6 yards. One of those passes was intercepted. One of those catches went for 0 yards on 4th and 2, in which the ball was then turned over. So to me, and what's pretty interesting is it's a surprise, one, at how little he was used in the red zone, right? A lot of those were from the 15-yard line and back little seams, the quick seam routes that we like, or that we see Quinn Ewers so often throw to Jatavian Sanders. There wasn't a whole lot of creativity to get him schemed open. And I think you saw that against Alabama. That's what he does with his big tight end talents, is he'll find ways to scheme him open, whether it be the little slip screens, saw it against Oklahoma State, whether it be the deep crossers, the boomerang routes. That's great whenever there's 60 yards to go to the end zone. But when it's time to put points on the board, how do you get one of your better weapons and the opportunity to score touchdowns? And that was a real issue last year for Jatavian Sanders and Steve Sarkisian. He just wasn't a big scoring option. So will it be an Amari Niblack? Could Gunnar Helm grow into this mold? I don't know, because it also, to me, depends on what can you do as a tight end to beat that man across from you in a man-to-man situation. Is Amari Niblack better suited to do so? Maybe, right? I think those highly contested catches that we saw JT make at times last year, that made up for what was a lack of speed to an extent, right? He was so talented at making those contested catches that I think at points you just said, just throw it up to him. We'll find a way to come down with it. It didn't happen that way. So who are going to be those guys this year? I don't know. I lean towards Amari Niblack as the better receiving option, but Sarkisian likes using that same personnel to then run, future plays without having to substitute. And a lot of those plays include split zone, duo, and outside zone. So we'll see what actually turns out to be the strength of that group next year, especially in the red zone. But the other thing is who's going to be your jumbo guys, because right now that was a large part of the Texas red zone push. I have some of the snaps here. They were in jumbo 11 personnel, so that's 6 offensive linemen and 1 tight end. They were there 15% of the 15% of their snaps in the red zone. Jumbo Wildcat, Jumbo 12, 13, and even 41 personnel make up about another 10%. So a quarter of their snaps a year ago actually included 6 offensive linemen on the field at some point. Really interesting there. You see 21 personnel up at the top as well. So almost 45% include 2 tight ends or a jumbo offensive lineman look at some point. The other, not too often, I think only twice out of 155 snaps did you see Texas go 5 out empty. So you see what the idea, kind of ideology of Steve Sarkisian is here. And that's when we get within the red area, we're going to pound and ground. We're just going to bully you into the end zone. And that wasn't the case last year. So this year, when you go into that 41 defensive lineman personnel where it was Byron Murphy and Devondre Sweat, I've got 2 guys, and I've not heard this for sure, so this is just me speculating. But I do think it's going to be Alfred Collins as one, and I think Jure Bledsoe is going to be the other, because I think you see those 2 on their athleticism peak just a little bit higher than what you have with some of the other guys in that room. I think Alex January later on in his career could grow into that. Maybe not right now, but Alfred Collins, we saw what he can do with his hands. 1, the Colorado interception. 2, the spring game interception that was returned for a touchdown. And then 2, Jure Bledsoe, a guy who can backflip at 300-plus pounds pretty easily. Pound for pound, probably the most athletic guy on the roster. So we'll see. But those are my 2 early candidates to be your jumbo, full house, I formation, kind of defensive line, 41 personnel options at the moment.
Love that. Good stuff, CJ. This is why you want to be an OTF OG, because he just broke down, gave you a little bit of that article that he wrote about the red zone, but it was fantastic. Just remind everybody, if you want to be an OTF OG, you can join on TexasFootball.com. They're running that special, $20 off an annual subscription to the site if you use the code OTFOG. The OTFOG for $20 off instead of $60 a year. It'll cost you around $39.95, or you get the monthly subscription for $5.95. So you'll get all that great insider information, just like my man CJ broke down. So good stuff, CJ. Really good stuff.
Thank you.
I got my own, questions about Texas in the red zone, but seems like that's going to be a staple for them. And I wonder who's going to be the Wildcat person now if they want to keep the Wildcat thing going. Coach, you got any thoughts? Who would your first of all, who would your jumbo guys be? Do you like what CJ brought up there?
I like the jumbo guys. I remember Mac using Roy Miller.
Okay, yeah.
Defensive lineman Malcolm Brown from Brenham. Those type guys. I like those guys I like the shorter guys. I don't like tall guys, because when you're going into block, who's going to win the block most of the time? The guy that gets under the pads.
Yep.
So you don't want a 6'5" guy going and trying to block, because he'll bend at the waist. Whereas these guys that are incredible squatters and have incredible hips and leg strength, those are the guys that I want leading into the line of scrimmage, because they can get under people, and with their strength and their weight, they can push the pile back. So I don't have anybody specifically in mind, but that Malcolm Brown type, Poona Ford type body is what I like. Somebody can get under pads and are strong enough in their hips and their legs to move it.
Yeah.
Coach, that's a great point. I'm going to bring up a salty moment from last year, but that goal line stop Oklahoma had on Texas. Play number 2, that 2nd down and 1, was a toss to the right. And what Texas did was they were in the I formation with Byron Murphy as the fullback. They had Tavondre Sweat out wide as a kind of an attached nub, tight end. And they had the pin pull coming in off the toss, off the edge. And what did Tavondre Sweat do at 375 pounds? Well, Coach, he got high. And where did Oklahoma's defensive end kind of hit him? Right here in the stomach. So instead of using your mass to get him and that group into the end zone, he's stuck on the 1.5 yard line, where Texas then takes a half-yard loss. They try again on 3rd down. Then they go to 11 personnel. They try to throw a quick slant, stopped on the 1. You're looking at a completely different ball game, because you don't have that leverage of getting low and pushing your guy into the end zone. That was one of the issues that we saw with that group. But also, there's so many creative opportunities that Texas did score 6 of the 11 snaps that they had in that personnel. Obviously, 3 of them came against Oklahoma where they did not. So that's just one of the ways in which it can backfire. Good point.
Yeah. And when Sark was asked about it at Big 12 Media Days, I'll give Sark a lot of credit. After, first of all, agreeing with my hypothesis that it's a Bijan Rojo hangover. He hadn't gotten really used to it yet as a play caller. He said it's the play caller. He said it's the play caller. And I think because of the different variety of personnel groupings they use down there, I'm not sure Sark knows exactly who they want to be or who he wants to be in the red zone and on the goal line. And he's going to figure it out, because he's a brilliant offensive
I bet he's already got it figured out.
You know what I'm saying? He's going to figure it out.
He wonder about it. I guarantee you he talked to people this offseason about it, and he's got a plan. I promise you he does. It's not one of those things when you're head coach at Texas, you waltz into training camp going, what now let's see, what am I going to do? He's already got a plan. He's visited with some of the best minds that are good at that, and he's got a plan, I promise you.
I believe you do, Coach. I believe he does as well. And I think part of the plan was probably him going to the NFL for inspiration, like he often does in the offseason there. All right, good stuff there. Thank you for the question, Just a Dude. Thank you very much, CB, as well. We appreciate you guys' participation. Getting back to the questions here. How about this one? Jeff says, Arch in the 3rd quarter against Colorado State.
Late in the 3rd quarter.
I mean, that's the goal, right? This is the goal. The goal is Art should be playing by the 3rd quarter. If he's not, isn't it a little too close for comfort, Coach? If he's not in there by the 3rd quarter sometime?
I don't know. You know who the offensive coordinator is at Colorado State?
Jay Norvell's not calling his own plays, is he? Who's offensive coordinator?
Do you remember the guy that really started it all, that I'm talking about, like at Valdosta State? Leach was with him.
Mummy? No, Hal Mummy?
Yeah, Hal Mummy.
Is his son? His son.
Hal Mummy's son is the offensive coordinator at Colorado State.
Yeah. I think I did hear that. You're right about that, Coach.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I would love to see it. It's probably going to be more like the 4th quarter, but regardless of what the score is, because, and we've talked about this before, it's a double-edged sword. You want to keep your quarterback safe and you want to keep him healthy, but at the same time, you got a guy who, in a lot of people's minds, is one of the top 3 for the Heisman. And so, you unfortunately, there's a lot of people, they just look at the stats. If everything else is comparable and you're everybody's 10-2 or whatever, you look at stats, and unfortunately that's the way it is. So I think there's probably a little that could play a little bit into these games that shouldn't be that close, letting them go into the fourth quarter.
It'll be a nice test for our secondary because they have Torrey Horton, I believe is his name. He's going to play on Sundays. He's a really good wide receiver, and most people don't even know how they kept him as a wide receiver because he's a guy that a lot of people thought would be in the transfer portal because he's been so prolific. He's a 1,000-yard guy. He'll play on Sundays. And remember, they have the quarterback that K-State was willing to offer how much for? Or at least somebody over there at K-State was willing to offer like $500,000 to $600,000 for. His name was Nicolosi? Braden Fowler, Nicolosi. So, hey, that's a $600,000 connection, guys. Better worry about that.
It's pretty impressive. Horton's tremendous.
He is tremendous. He's a good player.
I'm not sure if I still buy that price tag for the quarterback. Pretty turnover prone a year ago, 16 interceptions. So we'll see if that was accurate or not. But talented team 100%, especially when you got a wide receiver like Horton, who's probably going to go day 2 at the latest next year.
Yeah, and coach just told you too. They got an offensive mind back there. He's got one of the good DNA, if you will, good genes for that Mummy family. All right, let's get to another question here. How about this from MJF? Said on 3rd and very long, do you see us putting 4 edges on the field at the same time? If so, who are the ones lining up on the inside? I have been on this bandwagon for a while. Thank you very much, MJF, for the question. The NASCAR package, which in the NFL teams are famous for, where they'll just put all their best pass rushers on the field. Now it's easier in the NFL. You don't have as many teams going tempo, and you can substitute your different groups in and out situationally. But for Texas, I think considering the embarrassment of riches you have on the edges, I think it would be really smart. And with Johnny Manson coming in, a guy who is known for his exotic looks, exotic packages, I would have a look with Alfred Collins with my 1D tackle I'd keep on the field. Yep. And then after that, I'd put edges all around them for a NASCAR package. As MJF is mentioning, 3rd and very, very long. Who are those? Just Trey Moore's got to be one, right, guys? Trey Moore's got to be one. Best natural pass rusher. Who else is out there?
I think if you're going NASCAR, right, you're going to have some sort of beef. I think it's Alfred Collins in there, maybe Jermaine Lollet. He's that other option who has a lot of sacks from the interior position in his career. If you need a 3 tech, I think you bump in Ethan Burke, right? Yep. He's playing at 265, 270. He's got the length at that spot. Hands up with Burke and Alfred Collins there. That's 2 interior defensive line duos. Or your duo there is 6'5" and 6'6". So good luck throwing over the top of that. And then off the edge, I think you got Trey Moore on the outside on one spot. And then you can either go Colin Simmons, another speedster threat off the other side, or you can go with Colton Vasek, a guy who also has been very, very impressive behind the scenes since, about week 2 or 3 of the spring when he kind of flipped that switch and said, okay, I'm fully healthy. Let's play some ball now. The staff's been very happy with the way that he's kind of turned that corner. We saw it in the spring game, Rod. He had multiple sacks, multiple tackles for loss. So you got options there. Justice Finkley, a guy that's also not mentioned too often. In a 3rd and very long situation, you could absolutely throw him on one of the edge spots and have him be a formidable threat that you have to respect because of the other guys that you surround him with as well. What about Hill on the edge? Yeah, look, it's interesting. It depends on how much you trust that remainder of the linebacking room, right? Do you think David Benda's a guy that you trust dropping back into coverage enough? Is Leon Galafau a guy that you could drop into that place as well? I think right now, until you know who you have at linebacker, you have to keep him there because you don't have a Jalen Ford at the linebacking spot to kind of clean up what would be otherwise a void in the coverage in the middle of the field because Ford was so good a year ago, 2 years ago. It's kind of just a big question mark on who else besides Hill can be that pass, first linebacker for Texas this year.
Yeah, I say you blitz Hill.
You do?
Let him the linebacker spot.
Yep, I like that, Coach. Then you got all your best
You're sticking to a man. What about that void, Coach? If you're taking Hill out of the middle of the field there, is it just trusting Benda?
Dropping the safety down?
Yeah, hopefully you'll have another linebacker and you'll have a nickel or a safety back.
You can drop a safety down there.
I don't know.
I like that, Coach. No, if you're talking about NASCAR package, we're talking about third and very long, and I don't even think they'll break it out unless it's third and long and they have a lead. I think it's very deep. I think they'll third and long with the lead, where basically a team is in a predictable passing situation and they're throwing to get back into the game. You know they're going to throw, and it helps you for them to run. If they decide they want to run against that package, you're like, please run. You're just wasting time, and that's exactly what we like. The clock is not your friend. In that situation, I kind of agree with Coach that I could leave that void there just to make sure all my best pass rushers are rushing the quarterback. In addition to, like you said, Trey Moore on the edge, you can get Colin Simmons or Colton Vosick on the edge with Alfred Collins inside, Ethan Burke inside, and you can always drop that nickel down or drop that safety down into that at linebacker depth and go single high. Remember, nobody played more single high coverages in the Power 5 than Arizona last year. And it was so they can get funky with pressure packages, kind of like Coach is saying, and kind of how you brought up, CJ, earlier about those linebackers who got those big sack numbers. So I can see that, but I'm with you though. The concern, CJ, I don't want to do it when that can still be exploited by a team that can have balance on offense. You want to make sure they're unbalanced. Basically, they are one-dimensional at that point in the game, which we saw Texas do that to U of H and TCU and K-State. And that's exactly when you want to deploy that package, potentially in that situation. So,
and you can also have what I call a yo-yo, and that is two things, however you want to game plan. You can have that linebacker just go balls to the wall. If he finds a gap, then he's great. If he can't get through, then he immediately backs up, yo-yos back.
I like that.
In case, and then sometimes you fake the blitz, have him go to the line of scrimmage, and them read hot, and then you back him back out. But either way, I found it to be pretty good. To try to send him if he can find a gap. If there's not an easy lane, then come back, and if nothing else, just mirror the quarterback.
I like the yo-yo reference. Good stuff there, Coach. All right, how about this? Ashley says, I'm hearing there's the least depth at linebacker on defense. Is that true? Your thoughts about the position that has the least amount of depth on defense? Is it linebacker? I guess there's not a lot of proven commodities at linebacker. You got,
That's true.
you got Anthony Hill, he just became the starter. And you got David Bender, who's been a long time, veteran there, but he hasn't necessarily been a starter for you. So is there a point there? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised in the spring when they didn't go out and add a grad transfer or someone from the portal when you saw Kendrick Blackshear and Samaje Burrell depart from the program, right? Those were two guys that Texas was pretty happy with. They obviously brought in Blackshear from Alabama to be a depth piece. He departs plus another piece, and you're sitting around thinking, okay, do we have enough bodies, right? If you go through them, I think you're comfortable with what you have in the sense that they didn't go out and add another piece. But, there aren't many proven commodities, to your point, Rod, right? It's Anthony Hill, it's David Benda. Beyond that, it's Maurice Blackwell. You could spin him inside if you need to, I think. Leon Galafau. Darian Gallette's the wild card to me. I do think he's a guy that can contribute this year. Obviously, a big win for Texas in the recruiting ranks over Ohio State, a number of others. But beyond that, is Ty Anthony Smith physically ready? He was listed at 215, 220 on the recent roster update. But are we buying that? I mean, he came in December at 195 pounds. So that's quite the jump to make for a guy who hadn't ever really had that much weight on him to begin with. But it's probably amongst the weakest, I would say, in terms of pure depth. I think that you have depth at cornerback, but your true options there, your true 1-2 guys, 1-2-3, you know who they are. What's beyond that, I don't think you know.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. A lot of talent, though, just not necessarily proven commodities just yet. Cisco wants to know, what does Quinn need to do to improve on feeling the pressure as opposed to seeing it? Thank you, Cisco. And we've talked about this, Coach. I think that's something that is natural for quarterbacks. There are some things that come, they're innate. I think you can improve on anything, but guys that really do, they call it the sticky stat, pressure to sack numbers, because they translate from college to the NFL. Guys who handle pressure really well at the college level, they handle it really well at the NFL most of the time. Of course, there are some exceptions to the rule. Quinn handled pressure better in 2022 than he did in 2023. Scouts are waiting to see in 2024 which Quinn you get, the one that handles pressure well or the one who's a bit erratic in the face of pressure. I think the reason he was worse in 2023 is because he decided to scramble every time he saw real pressure, because he is looking right at it as opposed to getting deeper into the progressions, which Sark, by the way, has brought up that's the next step for him to get to the third and fourth progression. The reason he hasn't is because he's not maneuvering in the pocket. He's abandoning the pocket when he sees the pressure to scramble. And that is the next step for Quinn. I don't necessarily know, how do you improve on that, Coach? Is there a way, or is that just more reps and him getting?
I think you can certainly refine it. I've had people I've tried to explain to people in a way that made sense to me in my handling of quarterbacks. And to me, it's you go back to your childhood and you and your buddy are playing chase. All right. And there's a curb and there's rocks and there may be a plant, there may be a stick of bush. You're not looking at them, but you see them. So you kind of like, I've said this before, high beams, low beams. You don't really take your eye off of the guy you're chasing, but in your low beams, you kind of know when there's a rock or when there's a curb. You don't just fall flat on your face, because you have that ability to be able to see where it is and remember in your mind where that pressure's coming from and do what you have to do to avoid it without looking at it. Your analogy is the best that I've ever heard, Rod, when you're talking about what's the phrase you use? In fact, I'll never forget it. Let's see, what was that? That's an old joke. I had an old coach who said, "Yeah, it's the best kid I ever coached. I'll never forget him." What was his name?
No, but Coach, I like what you said though. Also, you got to you know where the pressure is supposed to come from. It's part of being comfortable in the offense. If you and your center and obviously the quarterback of your offensive line, if you guys have set the protection based on the pre-snap read, you should know where the pressure is coming from, and you know where your protection is. So you know where you're guarded against the pressure too. But you also know where the vulnerability is. Like, all right, so this protection is sliding this way. We don't have I'm the quarterback. I'm responsible for the free rusher on this side, and I can't stare at him, but he's coming. I got to know by periphery that he's coming.
That's
and
right.
I got to be able to time it out with the hot read that I got and the hot routes and what my protection is. So maybe I can slide as a quarterback and buy myself a second or a half a second if I slide the right way. And this is Penix was brilliant at it. He would set up blitzers. I swear he would, Coach. He would set you up to step up in the pocket. He'd almost wait till you got to a certain depth in your blitz and easily step up right into the pocket so you'd whiff on him. And he wasn't looking at him, but he'd step up right into the pocket. And I swear, if he stepped up sooner, the blitzer would adjust their angle and get him. But he wouldn't. He'd stay right at the back of the pocket and then 2 steps up. And then you see, who was it? Was it Ethan Burke that whiffed on him in the Sugar Bowl? And it wasn't him. I saw Byron Murphy whiff on him a couple times. He came right up the middle on him. That guy handled pressure as well as anybody I've seen to college level in a really, really long time.
Yes.
Guys like him, Joe Burrow was kind of like that. But like I said, it's innate, a lot of it. And I agree. I love your high beams, low beams. It's so many factors. It's peripheral vision. It's also, learning and knowing where your protection is, learning how to maneuver in the pocket, being a pocket scientist. It's like 6, 7, 8 different things in one. Sark calls it being a fighter pilot, right? He's like, now you got to be a fighter pilot. That's kind of his description of it. But everything is happening around you, and you got to have, be calm in the midst of all this chaos happening around you. And I think at times Quinn succumbed to the chaos instead of being an agent of it. And I think that's what they want to see more of it. And I think he will. I think he's going to be great at it this year, actually, because how comfortable he is in that offense. Oh, good question there, Cisco. RW. What's up, RW? Says, Rod, which DB reminds you of yourself? Oh, none of them really remind me of me. This is the best description I have. I'm basically Malik Muhammad without the hands and without the ball hawking skill. I was a technician. I could play bump and run, but did not have any ball hawking skill at all. You guys know I'm top 5 in PBUs, and not the celebratory kind. The sad, the disgusted, upset kind, where Coach Akina's yelling at you on the sideline, catch the ball, babies. Catch the, you're dropping money out there. And background's like, catch the ball, babies. Yeah, you could have got drafted high. You could have caught that. You know what I mean? So it's not, my PBUs aren't one out good PBUs. So I didn't have the great ball skills, but I knew that. So I never played the ball, I played the man. So I would say Malik Muhammad because he's a technician.
Yeah, but does Malik Muhammad have that dog in him like you had?
He does have that dog.
Dog in him.
Hey, that's one thing I did. He does have that dog, but I did have that dog.
Then I'm all right.
I had that dog. Yeah, that's true.
Don't undersell yourself.
Nah, I appreciate that, Coach. I used to get into character before the games. Some Longhorn fans might remember this, but you got to be old to. They would be playing like music before the games, and I don't even know why Mac Brown would let me do it, but he did. And I had a dance routine I would do. It wasn't Ray Lewis coming out, but in the pregame, I would dance to Trick Daddy. They'd play Trick Daddy, and Mac Brown would just let me dance. I have no idea. My mama would say, "Why are you dancing?" I was like, "I don't know. I'm in character, basically. I don't even know. I have no idea." Regular Rod B would never dance in front of thousands of people, but Rod B, that played Black Caesar, who I played out there as my persona, he would go out there and dance. So I swear, some local fans.
No, that's good.
And I wasn't dancing good, Coach. It wasn't good. I was in the spirit. It was like going to church. That was my Holy Spirit, man. It was working. No, I tell you, I can't do it in my regular life. That wasn't me. I was a different person out there on the field. As you guys know, Coach knows that too. There's certain. I don't want my mama to meet the guy I was on the field. That's not the man my mama raised. That I was out there. That was a bad mofo. Let's get to a couple of questions. Then we'll hit one of these topics before we get out of here. This one's from MJF again. Hey, is more limited by his lighter weight, meaning that SEC offenses will run right at him if he's on the field on first and second or third down and short downs. I said earlier, guys, I would let him be my closer rather than one of my openers, because not that I'm concerned about that. I think the young man can handle himself on first and second down, but I don't necessarily think that's his strength. I think his strength is when teams are in passing situations and they're pretty much in one-dimensional situations where we know they're going to throw the football. So I would try to get him as many reps in that circumstance as I could. I do believe on first and second down, potentially teams could try to run him, but he's so explosive and has such great ball get off. He can make a lot of plays in the backfield just because he is quicker and faster than those guys. Yeah, if they get their hands on him, there may be trouble, Coach, but they got to get their hands on him first.
Yeah, the thing I'd say to that, hey, James Pierce, the guy that's widely known as the top edge rusher in the SEC this year for Tennessee, 10 sacks a year ago, 14.5 tackles for loss. He's 242. Now, he's 6'5", but that weight about the same. I think for Trey Moore to be around 6'2 and a quarter, 6'3", the difference is when he plays a larger, offensive tackle with the height differential, will he be able to sustain that level, that kind of underneath? He's going to be underneath anyways, but will he be able to, kind of plant the knee as you see Byron Murphy at times and hold his own? That'll be the question. But I think the quickness will be able to, play into his advantage in terms of the run game when they go right at him there.
Good stuff there. All right, guys. I know we're getting close to the end here. A couple of topics I want to bring up while we got some time. So the Maxwell Award watch list was released, and the Maxwell Award, let me know if I'm wrong here, guys. This goes to the best all-around player, right? It's just best all-around player. I don't know how they want to describe that. Best player in college football. And the Longhorns have had a couple of players who have won the Maxwell Award. I believe Tommy Nobis won it, Ricky Williams won it, Vince Young, Cole McCoy, some winners who have won the Maxwell Award in the past. Well, Quinn Ewers is up for the Maxwell Award. We were just talking about Quinn Ewers a little bit. And I saw this article over at Athlon Sports, actually, about the 3 questions that Quinn Ewers needs to answer in the 2024 season. I won't get deep into it here, but the 3 questions they say he needed to answer were: can he stay healthy? Number 1. Number 2, can he handle SEC competition every week? And number 3, can he prove to NFL scouts that he's an elite prospect? The durability thing I agree with. SEC competition, that's also something people want to see. That Michigan game, I think, is probably Michigan and Georgia will be my 2 games that I can't wait, because he's going to be not just SEC, but NFL caliber guys at every level of the opposing defense and opposing defensive coordinators who are among the best at their trade. And so that's what I want to see. That's where I want to see him shine. I think that's where scouts want to see him shine as well. And then I think ultimately to prove that he's an elite NFL prospect, I think those are the games where they want to see him. I always describe it as putting the cape on They want to see him put the cape on and come to the rescue of his team. Fourth quarter comebacks, game-winning drives in those situations to be able to prove that he's a quarterback that can be the great equalizer for you. If he can prove that, then potentially they'll think about drafting him number 1 overall. That sounds crazy, or at least the first quarterback taken, I should say. Usually that's number 1 overall. And the inspiration should be, hey, you know what, Quinn? If you need any inspiration, look at what the franchise quarterbacks are making in the NFL these days on their second contracts. All right. Hey, coach, if you need any inspiration, look at that. I want to say in Tua's first year on this new deal, he's going to make like $53 million. He's going to make more on this new deal than I think Dan Marino made in his career as a Miami Dolphin. Just let that sink in. So franchise QB, that should motivate you, shouldn't it, Coach?
Woo, man.
Oh man, it's crazy. The quarterback market is wild. But yeah, Maxwell Award. Do we think that Quinn's gonna be an award winner this year? National award winner. I don't know if it's Maxwell. There are a bunch of them for QBs. There's like 4 or 5 of them he could win. Is he? How many is he a finalist for? Finalist for a national award. Over on the coach and CJ. How many awards is he a finalist for?
Coach?
3.
Ooh, Maxwell being one of them, I'm assuming. Maxwell, what's the quarterback one? David O'Brien?
What's the Unitas Award? Is that the best on?
Oh, yeah, you're right. They got a Johnny Unitas Award. You're right.
But you're not talking about you're not talking about a finalist, right?
I'm talking about being a finalist. I'm talking about like a finalist.
A finalist.
Not gonna win it, but just a finalist.
I have to knock that down to 2.
I love that coach was drinking the Kool-Aid with 3, but he's like, I'll be realistic. It's just 2.
I thought you were talking about be on the watch list.
Oh, he'll be on the watch list on all of them. He'll be on all the watch lists. I want to know how many he's going to be a finalist for. Because listen, the hope is that he's a finalist for the Heisman, but listen, that ain't easy to do because Bijan couldn't even get there. That ain't easy to do. You got to have a hell of a season to be a finalist for the Heisman. We all hope that's the case. You can be, you won 12 games last season and, you didn't have a guy as a finalist for the Heisman. You can be a great team, but not have somebody for the finalist for the Heisman. So,
yeah, that's true. I like 2, Coach. I don't know if he'll be a Heisman finalist. I'd love him to be. If he is a finalist for any of these awards, that means the Texas season went pretty well. And at the end of the day, I think Texas fans would be very pleased with wins on the field than whatever, individual recognition comes at the end. So we'll play for wins first.
Damn right. Play for wins. Speaking of wins, I'm glad you brought that up. I got some win totals here from my bookie, the latest 2024 win totals for the SEC. They got the Longhorns and the Georgia Bulldogs both at 10.5 at the top. So it seems to be tiers to the SEC, at least based on preseason prognostications. Georgia and Texas kind of in their own tier, and then they're both at 10.5 predicted wins. And then there's Bama at 9.5, along with LSU, Missouri, Ole Miss also at 9.5. So that's kind of the second tier. And then the Aggies are in kind of that third tier, I guess, if you look at it, because they got the 8.5 group, which is Tennessee and A&M. And then maybe you throw your Auburn and your Oklahoma in that group too. Just kind of, they're 7.5. The Auburn's at 7.5, so is Oklahoma. Are we underestimating the Aggies? Because everything says the Aggies are going to be a top 15 kind of team. Like on the verge of being a top 15 type 20. If they're 8.5, say you round up, that's 9 wins if you're rounding up. And they beat Notre Dame, which they're favored over Notre Dame right now by 1 point, I believe. Could be a pick 'em by game time. They beat Notre Dame to start out the season. Hell, they could end up in a really favorable position by week 8, 9.
Where are they playing that game at?
Aggieland. It's an A&M.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. And A&M defense is going to be pretty tough too. And that place is going to be rocking for that first game.
Yeah, I will.
So I don't know. I just want because I know SP Plus has the Aggies at what I believe. SP Plus has them as like a top 15 team, and so does FPI. Yeah, FPI's got them at 14, and I believe SP Plus has them at 13.
What's Notre Dame? What do they have them at?
FPI has Notre Dame at, I think this is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, they have them at 7. FPI's got them at 7 that I saw. Yeah, Notre Dame 7. So Notre Dame's considered a better team, but I guess home field Aggies. That's why I think it'll be a pick 'em by game time. I believe though.
Yeah.
I think they were a 3.5-point favorite. Now they're a 1.5-point favorite. I think that'll be a pick 'em by game time. But I don't know. If Connor Wigman is good, we could be underrating the Aggies. Man, if the Aggies are good when Texas plays them, that game is gonna be it's gonna be crazy. That's gonna be one of the wildest atmospheres ever. If the Aggies are actually good, if they are like an 8-9 win team around that time, that could be crazy. That could be wild. All right. Another topic I want to bring up here, guys, while we're getting close to it. Phil Steele had his rankings. He has position unit rankings and SEC finish rankings. And I know, actually, go check out Good Coffee and Football. They actually interviewed Phil Steele. So go check that out. And Matthew, do we have these Phil Steele rankings? Can we go to position unit ones first and where they have the Longhorns? What Phil Steele has the Longhorns position units ranked in his latest Phil Steele magazine. Thank you very much, Matthew, behind the scenes. Look at that. Texas quarterback room, top one in the country. Got him as a top 10 running back group. Wide receiver, not high on Texas wide receiver. What's up with that? What's up with that, Phil Steele? I don't know about that right there. O-line, I like the ranking second. D-line, okay, I understand that. A lot of question marks on D-line, 18. Linebacker, fourth. He's really high on Anthony Hill. We just talked about there not being a lot of proven commodities there. DB, 16th, lot to prove there. Shout out to Jeff Banks and his special teams. They have been the most consistent phase for Texas since he got here. Always one of the better groups in the country. What are your thoughts, Coach? You know wide receivers pretty well.
Show me 15 teams that have a better wide receiver room than we do. Show me 18 teams that has a better wide receiver room than we do.
No.
Phil Steele, I don't know what he's looking at, but and I think running back, I think we could be a little higher there too.
Yeah, running back, I kind of get. Raw receiver, that makes no sense at all, Coach. You're right.
No.
I don't know if he did that before the transfers. I don't know when. I have no idea why he would have them so low. That one, that's a little. Yeah, that stands out.
You got some people that rank our DBs 7th or 8th in the country, and he ranks them 16th.
That's fine. You know what? And that's fine with me. Go appreciate it. I mean, we were a little surprised.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Pro Football Focus had him as a top 10 secondary. We were like, whoa, slow down a little bit. Just slow down. They're going to be improved, but top 10, let's wait a little bit. Show me something first. But, yeah, I'm with you, Coach. Wide receiver, there's no way 18 programs in the country have a better wide receiving core than Texas. So, Phil Steele a little off on that one. What about the projected SEC finish for Phil Steele? Do we have that, Matthew? I believe Phil Steele also had his projected SEC finish published as well in his latest magazine. Like I said, you can go check out the interview they did this morning on Coffee and Football with Phil Steele. We encourage you to do that. Yeah, he's got basically Georgia and Texas tied. Top. We just talked about the Aggies. He's got the Aggies 9th here.
Yeah, he's got a lot of ties on here, huh? You got a 4-way tie for 5th.
Yeah, that's a great
one there, Phil.
Way to go. Taking a chance there, Phil, I guess. Yeah. I don't get that. I don't know why. I mean, maybe he's predicting chaos in the SEC. That would be kind of chaotic if you have that many ties to finish in the SEC. But he's got the Longhorns finishing in the top 2.
I must be a little bit lower on LSU than the majority, right? You just lost a Heisman winning quarterback, 2 first-round wide receivers, and you had the worst defense in all of the country, and I'm expected LSU to be, tied for 5th this year. I don't know. I like Garrett Nussmeier, but we'll see if they have that same explosivity offensively when you have a brand new defensive coordinator whose defense at Missouri wasn't all that great, despite having a first-round edge rusher and a first-round cornerback. I don't know. I'm a bit lower on them than I think most are. But I think that top 4 is absolutely the order. Georgia, Texas, 1-2. Alabama, Ole Miss, you can go either way, 3-4 there. Beyond that, it's basically a coin toss with, 5 through 10, basically.
Yeah, people are high because they say LSU's got the best O-line in the SEC. Both of their tackles might end up being one of them definitely will, but both of those guys will be high NFL draft picks as well. But I'm with you. They did lose a lot. All right, and Phil Steele also has Longhorns projected in his top 10 finish as well. No surprise there. His overall top 10 in the country, not just in the SEC. He's got the Longhorns with a top 10 finish based on his rankings. There you go. number 4. So Phil Steele's high on the Longhorns, just position unit wise. Some questionable things there, but you got the Longhorns as a top 4 team in the country behind Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon. Thank you very much, Matthew, for those. All right, before we get out of here, got to thank our one of our fantastic sponsors. I want to thank the good folks over at Flat Creek Estate Wine. We appreciate them for sponsoring the Winning Drive and being part of the On Texas football family. Did you know that the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin? That's right, folks. Flat Creek Estate Winery is just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award this year for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Super Texan is now available at your local specs, so give it a try. Of course, Flat Creek is also a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. It's perfect for a day date with your significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery. You can also get away great getaway for a weekend getaway for you and your significant other as well. You can go check that out at flatcreekestate.com. Also, they have that Super Texan available at Central Market. I know that because my wife does some shopping there. She saw it. She was really excited. So she brought home some Super Texan from Central Market. So they have some of the wine there as well. So thank you very much to our good friends at Flat Creek Estate Winery for sponsoring the Winning Drive. Guys, one more story before we get out of here. I saw, and you guys brought this up earlier this week, that my man Jordan Whittington got some high praise actually from Cooper Kupp, who essentially said that Jordan Whittington was a special player. And it said that he was already turning some heads at training camp for the Rams. And so here's a little nugget also this comes from Charles Robinson, who's going around to different training camps in the NFL. And he had a little blurb about Jordan Whittington as well. So in addition to Cooper Kupp giving high praise, saying that Jordan Whittington is pretty special and that already he's taking reps with the ones, that is what I think more importantly is what Cooper Kupp revealed. Yeah. Now, I don't think that means he's getting starting reps at all, guys. Like he's going to be a starter. No. What that means is the coaches, and you know this, coach, they trust him enough as a rookie in training camp to give him reps with the ones, because the last thing they want is to lose time because some young player is making mental mistakes, doesn't know where to line up, doesn't know what routes to run. If that's the case, then you need to sit on the sideline. You can get mental reps. So what that tells me is coaches at least trust Jay Witt if he's getting reps with the ones, right, Coach?
No doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt. Plus, how can they not just love what he brings to the locker room too? And what he brings to the locker room, he brings to the receiver room, the receiver drills, and what he brings on the field is just incredible effort, incredible learner, a guy who just wants to compete and he wants to win.
Yep. And so here's the blurb before we get out of here. Said, and this is from Charles Robinson, the top guys taken in the first 3 rounds of the draft are oblivious, but this has been a staff that has hit on surprised and rebuilt parts of the roster in the latter rounds. It says 6th round wideout Jordan Whittington could fall into that category with size and versatility that could carve out a Deebo Samuel type role if he can stick around and develop. No, he's not going to have a Puka Nacua impact off the jump, but he has an interesting long-term possibility. So there you go.
Gotta like that.
You gotta like that. So even if he doesn't make the team, it looks like he's definitely going to be a practice squad guy for them, maybe a bit of a project. So keep working hard, Jay Witt. Good to hear that. All right. I want to thank our sponsors. First of all, thank our good friends from Flat Creek State Winery. We want to thank our good friends at South Point Dodge for sponsoring the Winning Drive. Thank you, Coach, for all that you do. Thank you, CJ, as well. Folks, you want to make sure you are tuned in to the On Texas Football channel and also OnTexasFootball.com. I mean, CJ, Jerry Hamilton, Bobby Burton, and myself, we got you covered. Practice reactions, recruiting news, notes, and nuggets over the next couple of days. We'll have all that. So make sure you tuned in. I want to thank my man Matthew behind the scenes for doing a great job. Thank all you guys out there for your questions as well. For CJ, for Coach Bob Shipley, for the On Texas Football family. Until next time, hook 'em horns.